Hello Steelers, and welcome to this video in which I'm going to be looking at cocking up the mud and the blood. What is cocking up the mud and the blood, I hear you say? Well, it is a mashup of Through the Mud and the Blood and Chain of Command. Two Fat Lardies games. Through the Mud and the Blood is their First World War's large skirmishers game. Chain of Command is their Second World War platoon level game. Through the Mud and the Blood came out first. Chain of Command is quite a lot newer. I've done a long review on Through the Mud and the Blood, and also a couple of the supplements as well, that's also on the rest of the channel, so go and check that out. I'm not going to go too much into this today, but this video is actually a viewer request. Andy Shaw asked if I could have a quick look at the differences between Through the Mud and the Blood, Chain of Command and cocking up the mud and the blood. Now I'm looking at this in my Play the Game special, which I've got here. I got this printed out. This you can get from the Two Fat Lardies. This is only £10 for over 200 pages of First World War content. I've done a video on this as well, so go and check that out. I'll put the links for those videos in the description of this one. So go and check those out anyway. This is well worth the £10. But Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood actually first appeared back in 2014 in the Christmas special. The reason for it was because basically a lot of people, what had happened was people were playing Through the Mud and the Blood, and then they started to play the Second World War Through the Mud and the Blood. And then the Two Fat Lardies released Chain of Command, and then a lot of people asked if they could make Chain of Command into a First World War version. So kind of going fully round, really, in a strange way. So that's kind of the history of it. But as I say, it was produced in the 2014 Christmas special. Now you can buy that over on the Lardies website. I think it's around about £5 there, pretty much. However, I would actually say to you, you're probably better off buying the Play the Game special. Although this is £10, twice the price of a normal one. This has got loads and loads of First World War content with it. Not only can you use it with Through the Mud and the Blood, but you can also use it with Cocking Up Through the Mud and the Blood. It also has two actual pint-sized campaigns in this, and I'll show you those as we have a look at this anyway. I'm going to do a little bit more of a deeper dive into this particular one. This was a viewer request from Andy Shaw. He said he asked if I could do a look at how the differences between Chain of Command, Through the Mud and the Blood and Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood are. So we'll go through them because I'm familiar with both Chain of Command and Through the Mud and the Blood anyway. I have actually played Cocking Up Through the Mud and the Blood. First time I ever played it was Chris over at Steel Lard in 2019 put on a game of an attack during Combray. Played that. It's the first time, really, almost second time I'd actually played Chain of Command properly as well. But I've also played this on the channel as well. I played it at Virtual Lard. I had the Battle of Bourl on Wood for through Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood. I've also filmed versions of it as well on the channel, on Attacking Mons in 1918, and also the Battle of Bourl on Wood as well. So there's a couple of things of this on the channel, and I really do like the game. I don't think it's any secret at this point that Chain of Command is my favourite war game of all time. It's reigns supreme above everything else. So a First World War version of it is absolutely fantastic. Now I'm just going to say, first of all, it is a late war version, so it's 1917-18 really. You could probably push it a little further back to probably 1916, but the lists that you get in this are for 1917-18. There are the four Western protagonists, so you've got the British, the Germans, the French and the American forces listed in this. We'll look at those in a second anyway. There is, as I say, a pint-sized campaign for 1915 for the Battle of Loos, September of 1915. This is kind of when developments in weaponry is just starting to take hold, so grenades, for example, are just starting to become a thing. I think that the game set pre-1916 might be a little vanilla, because literally everybody's just got rifles, apart from, as I say, towards the end of 1915 where grenades are starting to become a thing. Now, you know, that is almost like saying, I suppose, a short practice game in the Napoleonic is going to be pretty vanilla because everybody's got muskets. I can see that argument as well, but I kind of feel that the later war of the First World War is far more interesting because you've just got more interesting weapons. So you've got rifle grenades, light machine guns and rifles, so there's quite a lot going on. You've also got the support weapons as well. Now, as I say, this is only up to from late 1916 through to 1918. I have been pressuring Rich every time I talk to him. When is the official Chain of Command version coming out? I mean, this is the official version, I suppose, because I think this was written by Rich back in 2014. But as I say, it's missing the first half of the war, and also obviously other theatres as well of the Western Front. So it would be nice to see it fully rounded out and even produced as a game in itself. But I know Two Fat Lardies are pretty much a two-man operation, so the chances of it ever seeing light at this point are pretty low. If I keep making videos like this, then you never know, it might actually happen. But let's just talk about this quickly, quickly. So we're starting on page 238. The actual game itself, including the lists, only cover about 20 pages or so, I think it is. Let's just see, it comes up to 254 pages. So yeah, nearly 20 pages, 18 pages or so, isn't it? My maths are not on. But it basically takes Chain of Command. So if you know Chain of Command well, he just takes it and kind of drifts it out. One of the other things I will mention as well is, when it comes to Through the Mud and the Blood versus Chain of Command, I like both of these games very, very much. Chain of Command is very much dependent on just one platoon. You can play Big Cock, which will allow you to field several platoons. I've not played it myself, and I'm sure it works very well. However, Through the Mud and the Blood, we've definitely played 2 platoons, and I reckon this could probably take 3 platoons quite easily on each side, that is. So this is a bit more larger skirmish, so you can push this one a little further, I think, than you probably can with Chain of Command as it's designed. That's just my thoughts on that anyway. I'm fairly sure somebody will tell me that, oh yes, I played Big Cock quite happily. And I'm sure you have, and I'm sure I would as well if I played it. However, so what I'm saying here is that Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood is all about platoon on platoon action. So it is, very much back to that, back to basics. It does say in the rules that you can use more than one platoon if you want. Obviously, just follow the free Big Cock rules that you can get over on the Two Fat Lardies website for various things. So you can do it. And I'm fairly sure it would work pretty well, but I think you'd also probably just have to increase your table size as well. Anyway, well, enough of that. Let's have a quick look at the actual rules themselves and just go through them. As I say, we'll do a bit of a dive into them and talk about the differences between this and Chain of Command and Through the Mud and the Blood and how things work, and I'll show you the army list as well, and have a quick look at a couple of those pint-sized campaigns. Okay, so this is the opening part of it, and as I say, it's about 20 pages long, these rules. Really, this is already described in here anyway. He says that it is not going to be replicating whole rules from Chain of Command itself, because there's no point really, because a lot of it can be quite easily transposed over with just a couple of tweaks here and there. What you'll see immediately is we still have the patrol phase here in the game, which is great because it's one of the great parts of Chain of Command. It's one of my favourite bits of it, and one of the better mechanics, I think, in any game system that I've seen. However, there's a slight difference here that you will, if you're a defender with trenches, you actually place a couple of your jumping off points automatically in those trenches, so you know where they're going to go. So that's quite nice. Just changes it up ever so slightly, because obviously there's not so much trench warfare in the Second World War, or on the Eastern Front there is a little bit, but not as much as there is on the Western Front of 1916 to 18. Also, we have the army list as well, it mentions here, but we have Chain of Command points. These do slightly different things to what they do in Chain of Command. You have the normal Chain of Command points, and I've got the list of them here. So let's just quickly go through. You can interrupt an opponent's phase, you can end a turn, move a friendly jumping off point, ambush with a single infantry team, relocate a sniper, avoid taking a morale test, and keep a barrage mortar firing on the turn end. However, in Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood, we now get a couple of extra ones, so we can reduce your opponent's chain of command dice by 1 in the, sorry, their opponent's command dice by 1. This must be played before the opponent rolls their dice, so that's quite nice. Also, you can actually add 2 command dice to your hand in this phase, and that again must be played before. So that's really elevating those chain of command dice to make you to either, you know, damage your opponent or just to lift you completely. And then also finally is change the target for an off-table machine gun by 18 inches, because obviously you got machine guns firing on sustained fire in the First World War, more so than you do in the Second World War. And they would be firing from off-table onto the table as well. Everything is pretty much the same as it is. It's you know, there's just a slight point here and there for various things, so like the turn sequences and the phases, how things change ever so slightly for the First World War, and same with movement. However, now trenches are considered broken ground. Ground that as is muddy ground, waterlogged. Broken ground is also muddy ground, and trenches. Waterlogged and shell crater ground is heavy going, and dry ground, even when cratered, is considered to be open ground. Also, we have the addition of cavalry as well, which are not, well, apart from in some of the supplements, we're going back, you know, nearly 10 years here, remember. In some of the later supplements, cavalry are about, but in here, we get them, they move at 3d6 with 2 extra pips per dice. Firing is done the same way, apart from when you're firing at mounted men. You to roll to see if you hit the horse or if you hit the rider, so that's an interesting difference. And we also have our national, or the basic arsenal table as well. So this, as you can see here, covers pistols, rifles, rifle grenades, automatic rifles, Lewis guns, MGO at 15s, MMGs, flamethrowers, Granatwerfer. Also, we have mortars up to 60mm, 61 to 100mm, 100 to 175, and then over 175, and the damage and stuff they do. And a couple of bits of artillery as well. So we've got 37mm 1-pounder, 60mm 6-pounder, 76.2mm or a 13-pounder, and then a 77mm plus 18-pounder as well. And it's got all the firepower for all of those. So this is the basic stuff, quite nice. Grenades are used very differently in this because they are a specific section weapon which doesn't appear in chain of command, whereas in chain of command you use commanders' initiatives to throw grenades. These are done as though you're firing instead, and they have a range. So this is quite a change. It's only a range of up to 11 inches, and they have 2 firepower per grenade, so they're quite devastating, but they're very short range obviously because they're just men throwing them. Same with rifle grenades, they go up to between 18 and 60 inches, and they reduce cover by one level. We've also got armoured vehicles as well, and anti-tank fire on this side over here. So we do have some armoured vehicles, because obviously it was the birth of the tank, the First World War, especially the late parts of it. And it just gives you a basic takedown of how they work and what they do. Then also we've got anti-tank fire as well, and you will notice because the tanks in the First World War were actually affected by weapons and rifles and things, you can actually fire at them with armour-piercing machine gun ammunition, for example. It's only got a strike dice of 1, but they also have grenade bundles as well for getting into the tracks and things. So you can actually use you know, small arms against the tanks because they were effective. They create bullet sprawl on the back. Then we have close combat, pretty similar. There's going to be some slight changes here, just in the changes in the combat compared to it is in chain of command, but it's pretty close. It works pretty much the same, to be perfectly fair. However, we also have some bits and pieces from the First World War that are specific. So crossing wire, for example, what does this say here? Troops may attempt to cross an undamaged section of wire. In order to do so, a section or team must be placed adjacent to the wire and roll a d6 in each phase. It does nothing except to make this attempt. On a roll of 6, they're able to remove one section of wire, so you can get past wire. We've also got bunkers. If men are in bunkers, you can throw grenades in and see if they will surrender or if they will come out to attack. And then we go on to the army lists, and again, a lot of this stuff is stuff that's come in from through the Mud and the Blood, such as the trench brooms, the trench blocks, entrenchments and bunkers, and also pre-game barrages are slightly different to what they are in Chain of Command as well. Because obviously artillery is very important in the First World War, and they tried lots of different techniques and things on it. And then we also have an SOS barrage, which you can bring down on one of 2 points that you choose on the table, and then you basically just roll to see how many hits there are on people. But they may have silencer guns, so you have to roll to see if the guns are going to fire or not. Basically the way it works is, I'll just take you through it. To initiate an SOS barrage, the highest ranker senior leader must use all his command initiatives in a phase to send a message to the battery. Then the battery is subsequently activated on a command roll of 1, so a team basically. However, but if you have a counter barrage in the opponents, then they may actually stop that SOS barrage as well coming in, so that's pretty good. And also then we have off-table machine guns as well, firing a sustained fire, and they just basically choose a target, and anything within 6 inches can potentially be hit. So that's the basic rules, really. As I say, you know, there's not a huge amount because it doesn't need a huge amount. I think there's 6 pages of additional rules in there, so 5 through to page 11. So, you know, very simple stuff. If you already know how to play Chain of Command, this stuff will just slot in, it just bolts on quite easily. It doesn't change the game in any particular way. A couple of things are taken out, some things are replaced, some things are brought in and added to. So it's not really making too much of a difference for you. What is interesting though is these are the force lists, and we have quite a few of these. Like I said, there's 4 of them, so we've got France, Britain, Germany and America, and these are all set out like they are in Chain of Command. And you have a couple of choices as well here. So we have the full strength platoon for the French, and also a reduced strength platoon as well. And this is all how it's built up. And then we get the support options. If it's in red, you can only choose 1 per game. I'll just show you here, we've got some on the other side. Then we also have these characteristics as well, which are ever so slightly different to the ones that you'll find in Chain of Command for those particular armies. We've got the support options, carry on there up to list 6, and then the French arsenal table as well, which includes the French vehicles and armoured cars and tanks, and also a little bit of information as to what some of these things are as well. 2 characteristics for each of the units for their training. Britain, we have a 1917 platoon, but then we also have a 1918 platoon as well, and there is a slight difference because there's an increase in Lewis guns in the 1918 platoon as more and more became available. They literally doubled the amount of guns that they had and the firepower that they were able to put down on a opposition. But once again, we have, you know, their support list here as well, and a number of vehicles here as well. You will also notice that we have Mark 1 tanks, Mark 4 tanks, Mark 5 tanks, Mark 5 stars, and also whippets as well. So everything pretty much that the British were using at any time. We have our characteristics, typical of British training. And then we've also got the US over here as well. So we've got a US infantry platoon, and that's basically all we get is the US infantry platoon. Slightly different to the British one in that it has a Shawshat instead of the Lewis gun, but you can use whatever you want because it mentions this in their platoon lists that you can basically stick with what you want in because they used whatever weapons were available to them because they were coming in late anyway. And then again, they have their support list with various additionals and a US national characteristic as well. And they have the arsenal table, which really includes the Mark 5 and Mark 5 star tanks as well, also on the FT-17 as well. So again, quite a mix of things. The final one is Germany. So we start with the infantry Zug, the basic one. So this is just your typical. So you have a rifle grouper under light machine gun group as well. 2 of those in each of the platoons, and they're generally made up of riflemen and a couple of bombers, and then riflemen and Lewis gun or an MG 0815. We also have though the Stoßtruppen Zug, which are the famed stormtroopers. So this is basically a slightly lighter, smaller platoon, but more heavily heavily armed with bombers than the normal Zug, so these are for real attacking here. The difference with the German stuff is they've got a blue additions to their support lists. This is stuff that can only be used by the Sostrup and not by the normal Zug, so there are a few of these here in there. I don't know if you can pick them up, if you can see the colour. So I've got flamethrower team, for example, here, a 7.62mm infantry gun, or a 7.7 Nahkampf gun as well. So that kind of stuff was only available to the stormtroopers. And then again, national characteristics, of course, and the German arsenal table includes every wargamer's favourite tank, the A7V, of which there were only 20 built, so there is always more on the table than were ever actually in action, pretty much, but let's not go there. Then, what is really good as well here is Rich has taken the 6 scenarios that you can get in the basic book, so let me just find those in our book. So these ones here, so you can see we have 6 of these, which are just your basic scenarios, and has basically rewritten them for First World War. So instead of having the basic setup that you get in the chain of command book, you just change it. So instead you've got concrete bunkers, stretcher frontline trench, for example. So these are slightly different, just to add a bit of First World War flavour to the actual things themselves. So quite a lot of work has gone into this, and I think it's a really nice addition to what is an already great game anyway. Then, as I say, we do have the Kaiserschlacht 1918 pint-sized campaign, so we can look at this. There's lots of information, lots of background information on it as well, loads of history here just about the Kaiserschlacht itself, the 1918 German final roll of the dice, which was strategically flaccid, shall we say. But then we have a pint-sized campaign which follows, along at the sharp end, and the way this works. And then we have specific enhanced support options for the Germans here, for example, and also support lists for the British as well. And then we have the scenarios, and you've got a small map here just to show you how to lay them out. Some trenches on these, so some of this would take a little bit of work because you've got the trenches on some of these, but this one, at least, scenario 4, is an open pretty much open table as well. And as I say, this book anyway, already, this Play the Game, let me just show you. I mean, this is full of scenarios for Through the Mud and the Blood anyway, which could quite easily be played with Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood. Another good thing as well about this set of additional stuff is the Handgranaten rules, which is a nice little article in itself, all about how to use hand grenades here and here. However, we also have additional rules for using them as well, and certainly these are laid out as though it's through chain of command rather than through the mud and the blood. So, this is a little bit of an extra bit on the back of it. Basically, the last several pages of this book in particular, or this lot, is actually cocking up through the mud and the blood. So from basically from here. I don't know how much of this is in the special itself. You'll have to go and check. Some of these might be in there, but it's certainly all gathered together in here anyway. And then, as I say, we have this final pint-sized campaign, Lose, September 1915. This is when bombs are starting to be used. The British are also using gas as well for the first time here as well. Again, a huge amount of information on the battle itself. And then the campaign. So the campaign ladder is here. Then we also have everything set out ready, as I said, already for cocking up the mud and the blood rather than through the mud and the blood. So we've got the British units here, we've got the German units here, which ones you're going to be using, your support lists. But let me just mention this. I mean, I mentioned it, and it is actually mentioned in the original article itself. It's pretty vanilla because it's not particularly interesting army lists. So let's just see. I mean, look, rifle section 1's got 10 riflemen. Bomber section has got a couple of bombers, 2 bayonet men, 2 carriers, and 2 spare men with rifles. So that's 8 men, and then a corporal. Then we have 10 riflemen in the section 2, and then in section 3, rifle section 3, another 10 riflemen. So we end up really with like 38 men, of which most are rifles. The Germans, 8 riflemen, 8 riflemen, 8 riflemen, 8 riflemen. So it's not particularly interesting force, really. As I say, you know, it'd be interesting to try it out, just because I think it could be interesting to see how it works, really. You know, with so few kinds of weapons on it. But you know, each to their own. Some people like that kind of stuff. And obviously, of course, we've got a German support list as well. And then we have we also have an option here to turn it into a Mud and Blood campaign if you really want to, which I'm sure some people would. And then we have the scenarios, and then we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 scenarios, and they're all quite open. There's a couple of trenches in these, but these will be quite easy to replicate on your tabletop, I am fairly sure. So that kind of gives you an idea of cocking up the Mud and the Blood as a rule set, or as an addition to the Chain of Command rules itself. As I say, I've played this several times now, and I really like it. I think it's a really good game. I also really do like Through the Mud and the Blood anyway. It's a different game. They're both, you know, you can play both of them quite easily as separate different games, and they both bring something to the table, very much so, I think. So I think it's well worth a look. From if you're interested in looking at some of the First World War stuff, and especially if you're familiar with Chain of Command already, I really think that this is something that, you know, you could quite easily pick this up. £10 just to get this book, or about £5 to get the special that it's in. Either or, both are a very good price, and I think you will have a great time refighting the First World War on the tabletop. Alright, I shall leave it at that. It's a little bit longer than I was expecting, but it's still, you know, it is what it is. And I think if you like it, let me know. If you played them, let me know. As I say, quite old now. These are coming up on nearly 10 years old, these rules. So it's been around for a while, but it is a great game, great fun, as always. Okay, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. And if you want to, you can help me out over on Patreon, and even as a channel membership as well. So, thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next Storm of Steel video.